Okay, I am finally live here. Sorry about that. I actually had a few, don't mind my broken glasses. It was weird when I went to go live earlier, the Streamlabs OBS and YouTube Studio wouldn't talk to each other for some strange reason. So I had to go back through Streamlabs and redo the streaming settings that I had set up. So no idea why. Every other time I've tested it, it's worked fine. In fact, earlier today I was playing around with the live stream settings, and I apparently went live for 1 second. Didn't even realize it. And I remember I was sitting here. I live in Southeast Florida, so it's hot, and I'm not a big air conditioner person, so I always have the windows open, and it's usually warm. So I never wear a shirt in the house for the most part. So I was like, I probably should put a shirt on in case I go live by accident. I was like, nah, no need to. And apparently I went live for like 1 second. And that was up for like 20 minutes and had 11 views. Now I film, edit, music, put together a video, put it on my channel, and I don't have 11 views in the first like 20 minutes, but that one did. So at least I'm finally live, wearing a shirt. It's cool. YouTube is telling me my audio bitrate is too low, and like I know anything about that, so that's something else I've got to research for another live stream later. But anyway, hi, I am Charles SirBookSage. This is just kind of a catch-up chat. How you doing, Tyler? I appreciate your patience. Thank you very much for hanging in there and hanging around until I actually got live. I didn't realize you were like a gamer. I just I figured hey, he probably has a YouTube channel. So I was just checking it out a minute ago. And that's pretty cool. I haven't played video games in years. I was like a Sega Genesis I had, and I do have a PlayStation 3, though it's in storage up in New York. But that was the only games I really play on it were like EA Sports, like NHL hockey, a couple things like that. Hey, Zen Book Review, how you doing? And so I'm not like a super gamer. I do have a Twitch channel, but I just kind of like watch other people do stuff there. I'm not really sure why I have it. I have it basically because you get a free channel for Twitch from Amazon Prime. So I think I mostly watch Claire Means. She's kind of just a singer, songwriter. And if you watch any review channels on YouTube, you probably have no Blind Wave. So they do like a live podcast. They do all sorts of gaming on there, but I don't watch their gaming stuff. But they do, like their podcast they do every week, they do live on their Twitch channel. So I watch that sometimes. So let me, I think I can pop this chat out and put it in a separate window on my channel, on my computer here. Make it easier to see. Give me just a moment here. Like I said, I used to be part of a craft beer group back in the day, and we used to live stream every Friday night. But that was through Google Hangouts, because Google Hangouts used to integrate into YouTube. And it was easy. There used to be up to 10 of us every Friday night with a different craft beer style. So I'm actually, for any beer drinkers or whatever, I'm actually drinking an Arrogant Bastard from Stone Brewing. It's American Strong Ale, a nice deep, I don't know if you can see that at all, kind of red amber. It doesn't really show up in this low light. Probably my desert island beer. Not my favorite beer of all time. That would probably be St. Bernardus Abbot 12, their quad. But this is like my go-to, you know, no matter what. I'll always enjoy an Arrogant Bastard. Let's see. I don't really have like super hard set topics for this live stream. I just figured I'd do kind of a catch-up. And Oh wow! Just reading the comments here. Thank you, Zen. That's pretty cool. If I knew how to, if I had software that could like pin, like show comments on the screen, I'd pop some of your guys' comments up. But I don't have that set up yet. Probably eventually I'll get there. I think I'm using Streamlabs OBS for anyone interested in the tech stuff. But I know there's like Streamlabs has like Melon, which is like, I think their competitor to StreamYard for web-based live streaming. And you can do all that kind of stuff pretty seamlessly in there. So I was just kind of looking up some tutorials on that today to see if that's something I might switch to for live stream stuff. So it's a little less clunky by the looks of it than doing stuff in OBS. And so yeah, so I figured I would just kind of do a catch up of what I've been reading. And I haven't actually been reading a whole hell of a lot. Again, most of my reading time has been spent on writing. This last really 2 months, I've been writing a lot more than reading. But I am still reading the first Mistborn book. And I'm reading House of Chains, which is maybe the 4th Malazan book in the main series, but it's my 5th book that I'm in my read of Malazan, because I'm reading the main series and the companion series sort of combined into this reading order. And really, really loving both of them. But my reading this weekend in particular has been a little different. Sorry, excuse me. My reading this weekend has been a little different than my normal reading. I'm actually reading the first 9 chapters of this book called The Blood Race by K.A. Emmons. She's a self-published author, and she has a new book coming out next month called Searching for Sparrow. I think it's like maybe YA fantasy or urban fantasy stuff. And Searching for Sparrow is set in the same world as this trilogy, the Blood Race kind of trilogy. So I downloaded the first 9 chapters. She has it available on her website. So I started reading that. If you like writing channels at all, like AuthorTube stuff, K.A. Emmons and her sister Abby Emmons has her own channel. They're both writers. They self-publish. And as far as writing channels go, they've got 2 really wonderful writing channels, and they do a weekly podcast together on K.A. Emmons' channel. Anyway, I'm reading that, and I am also reading an arc of a poetry book that is not released yet. Almost done with that. That is really, really interesting. I'm actually probably gonna, I'll talk about that in its own like separate video later. I'm gonna probably do a little like book review on that, because I'm actually really, really enjoying it. There's a lot of different poems in it, and it's very personal to the author, and it's dealing a lot with her past and reconciling and working through trauma and all sorts of different things. But pretty cool stuff. But not an easy read for anyone who is not comfortable reading very like pretty serious and traumatic material. But good stuff. Oh, you just started the Eye of the World, Tyler. Oh, you're in for a journey. I actually just didn't mean to, but I kind of just started rereading the Eye of the World the other day. And I'm not really rereading it, because I finished the Wheel of Time series, I think about 2 years ago. But I opened it up, and I'm kind of like bouncing through to some of my favorite parts. Particularly, I'm kind of rereading the opening, the Emmons Field part of book 1. It's a fantastic series. It's hard for me to pick a favorite book. I think it might be book 3, The Dragon Reborn. Though The Great Hunt is fantastic. And Sanderson did a really impressive job of finishing up the series after Robert Jordan died. I was impressed by how well he handled finishing that series off, and how well he integrated the parts that Robert Jordan wrote for the ending ahead of time. How well he integrated that into what he wrote to flesh out the rest of the ending. But yeah, The Wheel of Time is a fantastic read. I'm sure you've heard about the slog. I read the first 6 books back when they were first being published and then stopped. Not out of any lack of enjoyment or anything. It was just, I knew it was going to be such a massive series. I'm like, okay, I'm going to stop here and I'm going to wait until the series is finished, all published, and then I'm going to come back to it and then finally read it. And about 2 years ago, I finally got back to it and I read through. There was a read-along that 2 booktubers were doing. And they were doing basically 1 book a month. And I caught up to them and finished off, finally finished the series. So I reread the first 6 and then the whole rest of the series. And for those, I think starting with book 5 or 6, somewhere around there, I switched to audiobooks. So I was reading the ebook and listening to the audiobook at the same time. And I had started to get into the slog a little bit the first time. But I think the audiobooks really made it far more enjoyable. But there's so many things, even in that like part that slows down in the middle. There's really a lot of important stuff that happens in there. So I enjoyed it. It was far less, the little bit of the slog that I had read the first time, it was far less sloggy when I got back to that part the second time. But a fantastic ending overall. I want more, but I was satisfied, really satisfied with how each character's story was resolved and all the different ways it was resolved. And Zen, yes, I am doing more Song of Ice and Fire book content. I actually have prepped out work for another Winds of Winter Theory video that I'm going to be filming tomorrow, and hopefully filming and editing tomorrow so I can get it up on my channel on Wednesday. It's kind of a fun one. It's going to be a longer one because I'm going to go over all of the remaining POV characters in the story. I think there's 19 POVs still active at the end of A Dance with Dragons. So I'm going to kind of go over all 19 of them and speculate on which ones I think are going to die in A Winds of Winter. Because there's no way there's still going to be 19 POV characters left by the end of this next book, since there's only 1 more book to go after that in that story. So yeah, that's going to be kind of a fun video, just speculating who I think is going to die, and I'm approaching it from the viewpoint of how Martin uses POVs. So, because it isn't just that a character being a POV character is important in general, but Martin is very specific in how he uses POVs and why he makes certain characters POVs, and why he deliberately makes other characters who are really important not POVs. Because one of Martin's biggest decisions in writing the book was the main people who either were sitting on or trying to get the Iron Throne, he deliberately didn't make POVs. So Robert Baratheon, Joffrey Baratheon, Robb Stark, Stannis, Renly, none of these people were POVs on purpose. Martin's only showing us their stories through the eyes of POV characters around them. So in order to speculate on who you think might die, you have to look at how Martin uses POVs and what role they play besides just telling their own story. So the video is going to get into all that stuff. And yeah, Oh, Asha is going to become useless as a POV with Theon being with Stannis. Yeah, and that's one of the things I'm going to go over, because we now have Theon and Asha both as POVs with Stannis. So, but I think Theon is kind of like chained to a wall, so Theon can't move around. So Theon is our POV for, I'm guessing, where Thanos kind of like centers himself in his camp. And Asha hopefully has some mobility where we'll be able to see what's happening among Stannis' army through Asha's eyes. I'm hoping that's how Martin is using the two POV characters. I would like Asha to survive. I don't know if she will. I don't think Theon will be alive by the end of the whole story. But I do hope he does get a sort of redemptive arc with Bran, like he did in the show. So we'll see. Yeah, so I've got that video coming, and there's a few more after that. I'm also doing, if you're not aware, a special reread of A Song of Ice and Fire. It's a very slow process, where I'm picking one character and I'm reading just their chapters through all 5 books. And I'm starting with Arya Stark. So I've read, she only has 5 chapters in the first book, and I've read that. I've been reading them through multiple times to kind of develop my thoughts on her story. So I'm just trying to figure out how I want to do the videos. I don't know if I want to do one video per Arya chapter, or if I want to do a video for Arya's chapters for each book. It just depends. There's only 5 chapters for a Game of Thrones, but there's, I think, like 11 or more chapters in a Clash of Kings or a Storm of Swords. So I'm just really trying to work out the logistics of what kind of videos and how they would work. As far as Brienne and Jaime, like, I've been thinking about what does Lady Stoneheart want with Jaime? Well, one obvious is she's out to kill everyone involved in the Red Wedding. And not that Jaime didn't have any involvement in the Red Wedding per se, but he's a Lannister, and that condemns him. But what I think she wants, and when you first meet her with the Brotherhood, they say to the Frey right before they hang him that she either wants her son back, or basically everyone, all the Freys, dead. So we don't know where Robb Stark's body is at this point. We do know he was killed. They cut off his head. They cut off his direwolf's head and sewed the direwolf's head onto him. But where is his body and where is his head? Who has it? And I think, just my own personal opinion, I don't know if anyone thinks the same way, that Lady Stoneheart wants Jaime to make Jaime go get Robb Stark's body. Now, my personal favorite theory about that and about why she wants that is Beric Dondarrion passed the kiss of life to her. Does she want her son's body back to pass the kiss of life onto him? So getting a Robb zombie, sort of pun intended, would be pretty wild. So yeah, so you can't resurrect Robb like we expect they'll resurrect Jon, but not in the same way. But Lady Stoneheart is a walking corpse, and will she turn her son Robb into a walking corpse? And that would be really wild. Imagine a resurrected Jon Snow having to fight a resurrected Robb Stark at some point. I don't think Martin's going to do that, but I don't know if he has enough time left to even do something as crazy as that. But who knows? That's like, other than just wanting to kill Jaime, I don't see, like, the only other thing that makes sense to me is she wants to send Jaime to get Robb's body. Yeah, so Joffrey did ask for Robb's head, but we don't know that he ever got it, because Joffrey was, killed at the Purple Wedding right after Robb, not too far long after Robb died. So so yeah, we don't really know where. I don't even know where Ned's body is. It was slowly traveling to Winterfell with the Grey Sisters, I think. Ned's bones, but I don't know if they made it. I don't know where they actually even are. So, because I mean, Winterfell is basically snowed in at this point, and it's barely even winter. But okay, I'm just kind of trying to catch up on the chat here. Yeah, as far as Melisandre being a POV, I think that's one of my favorite chapters in the entire series so far. But I think that was to set up that she's going to be the Night Watch POV at the start of the Winds of Winter, because Jon's the POV, so we're going to need a POV there. Well, because Jon dies at the end of the book, so I think he was just setting her up, making her POV so she can take up that role to start off in the Winds of Winter. And I'm really, really curious as to how. I mean, obviously, the expectation is that Jon is warged into Ghost, and he's kind of still alive inside Ghost. Yeah, so Lady Dustin definitely does not want Ned's bones to make it beyond the neck, make it back to Winterfell. Because if you go back to, in the past, the Tower of Joy, you had Howland Reed, and a few others who were there with them. Ned did not bring their bodies back north with him when he came back. He brought Jon. And he didn't bring the bodies of the people who fought with him there at the Tower of Joy. I think he brought Dawn back to, and I'm drawing a blank on Sir Arthur Dayne's sister. And I'm drawing a blank on her name too. Of course, your mind goes blank when you're live streaming. And there's so many theories around her too. But I think Ned brought Dawn back to his family and gave the sword to his sister, and then came north with Jon. But as far as I know, he left the bodies of his friends down there. He didn't bring them back to their northern houses, and I think there's some resentment about that. And it makes you wonder why. Like, why would someone like Ned, why would Eddard Stark not bring the bodies of some of his best friends back to their northern families? So there's still so much we don't really know about what went down during Robert's Rebellion. And I believe Martin has said we're going to get a lot of those answers. We're going to learn, because when there was a lot of speculation about would HBO do Robert's Rebellion as another show, a prequel series, Martin said that by the time the Song of Ice and Fire books are finished and published, there won't be anything left to learn about Robert's Rebellion. So I'm hoping as Bran develops his sort of werewood network muscles and he's able to start seeing through time more, we'll get those answers. Yeah, I'll have to go back and revisit those conversations with Lady Dustin and Theon. There's a lot happening there. And one thing that's really interesting in terms of POVs is Dance with Dragons ended, and it's the first time we have no POV inside the walls of Winterfell. So from the entire series, from the opening chapter 1 after the prologue, there's been a POV at Winterfell, and there isn't now because Theon escaped. So the next book is going to open up with us, the reader, having no eyes or ears inside those walls. And Martin has said he has no plans to add any more POVs. So the POVs we have are what we've got. Now, he hasn't excluded that he might need to just make someone a POV if there's no other way to write what he needs to write. That's what he ended up doing with Barristan Selmy after Daenerys left Meereen. After Daenerys flew off on Drogon, Martin, one of the things that slowed down the release of A Dance with Dragons was Martin couldn't figure out how to tell what was still happening there after Dany left, because he tried to, can I get Tyrion there quicker? Can I get Victarion there quicker? And each thing he tried didn't work. So he finally just settled on, okay, I'm gonna promote Barristan Selmy to a POV character, and then it clicked, and he was able to write those chapters. Because that's one of the things that does take Martin longer than a lot of authors. Martin will work through a whole plot where he'll write out those chapters, and if it doesn't work, he'll try to tweak them and then fix them, and then eventually he'll realize, okay, that's not going to work that way, and he might change the POV, and then he'll rewrite all those scenes from that POV. So it's just the way he works. He might, perhaps he takes longer than others before he abandons something that's not working, maybe, I don't know, but he's not a fast writer, and part of what takes him a long time is figuring out the right way to write the scene, because he knows what he wants to accomplish, but once you start the actual writing, you don't really know if it's going to work or not until you do the writing. So, and of course, he no longer has his 5-year gap. So I think that was a big part of why Dance took so long and why Winds of Winter is taking so long. Is he originally had the story where everyone gets to the end of A Storm of Swords, and then the next book would pick up and it's 5 years later, so everyone's kind of aged up, and he can't do that anymore. So trying to figure out, I think, how to get some of these characters to do what they need to do, but still being the same age and no longer 5 years older, I think that's also been a big part of it. So I think those two things are a big factor. But he's left his cabin recently, which is a good sign that it's most likely he's probably generally done with the draft of the Winds of Winter, but there's that one final just kind of work through the whole draft before it goes to the, he makes that post on his Not a Blog. Let's see, Zen, yes, the Night of the Seven Kingdoms, that is probably next up on my read. I have up here Fire and Blood, the first book on the shelf. So I want to definitely be going through that, but I think I might go through Night of the Seven Kingdoms first before I work back through all the intricacies of the Targaryen history. And let's see here. We're just kind of catching up on the chat. Cool. Yeah, I'm really interested in seeing Dunk and Eggs in their story. I mean, Aemon Targaryen, the Maester. I loved his scenes in the book, and in particular, basically his death scene as they were sailing down to Old Town. The show has really made me more interested in the non-show plots. Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, I still can't decide which plot line the show screwed up more. I used to think it was the Dorne subplot that they screwed up, but now I'm thinking they might have screwed up the Greyjoy, the Ironborn plot even worse. for anyone who's watching this who hasn't read the books, in the show we have Oberyn, the Red Viper, and we have the Sand Snakes, and of course Prince Doran Martell. But in the books, there's Quentyn Martell, Prince Doran's son, and there's Lyanna Martell, Prince Doran's daughter. And I think she's the eldest of the two. But Quentyn is sent basically on a quest, a secret quest by the Prince of Dorne to Meereen to offer himself in marriage to Daenerys, to form an alliance with Dorne, back the Targaryens for the throne. And that's a whole story arc. I don't want to spoil it for the people who haven't read the books yet, but let's just say Quentyn goes on the prototypical hero's journey. Like if you read up on Campbell's hero's journey and all that stuff, Quentyn Martell goes on that journey. He's on that. The way Martin uses that traditional, almost tropey construct for fantasy, Martin takes that and gives it to Quentyn. And what Martin does with it, with Quentyn, is just really, really, really good. And that last Quentyn chapter, where he's the POV, was just, again, I can't express just properly just how well that chapter in particular was also written. And one of my favorite people on Twitter when it comes to A Song of Ice and Fire, his Twitter handle is Poor Quentyn. So he's a big fan of that plot arc. And one of my favorite chapters in the series also is is it Ariana? I think her name is Ariana Martell. I don't know if that's what I said before. When she's basically locked up for doing pretty stupid stuff, and her father finally comes to talk to her, and we finally get revealed what the Prince of Dorne has been up to in this whole story so far. And again, it's such a riveting chapter, and again, even though it's just conversation. Yes, the Princess in the Tower, but that chapter is such a mind expanding chapter, because you can then look back at moments in the series and see how different things could have been if different choices had been made. And so yeah, I love that chapter because it's so revealing and so eye-opening, just with Dorne, when you realize that the Prince of Dorne is far more smarter than he looks, and he's very, very involved, even though everyone thinks he's just sitting there in a wheelchair doing nothing, when he's just got multi-layered, multi-level plots going on. So really, really good. I'm really eager to see how her story is going to go, because again, Ariana Martell, another character completely cut out of the show. Yes, the Waymond Manderley, his speech, yes, as well. That was a great one too. And that's one of the things I'm going to be talking about in that POV, or the not POV necessarily, the Who's Going to Die in the Winds of Winter video I'm going to be filming. And it has to do with why Martin's basically sent Davos where he sent them, and what purpose it's going to serve. Because you have what I like to call the North Remembers plot, revenge plot, that's been building among the northern houses, and it's about ready to burst out in the open. And I think I think Sir Davos is being used by Martin to be our POV for that plot line that's going to basically start taking front and center in the North. So I'm really looking forward to that, because there's a reckoning coming for the phrase, and it's going to be a sight to see, I think. And it's probably going to backfire on the people carrying out that reckoning, but yeah, they don't realize, the Boltons and the phrase don't really realize what's in play going on in between Lady Stoneheart and the Brotherhood and the Manderleys and everything going on in the North. Because Rickon is still there. I think the theory is Rickon's on the Isle of Faces. So they have what everyone believes is the surviving heir to Winterfell. And we saw what happened to Rickon on the show, so that doesn't bode well for how that storyline is going to end. But I think Sir Davos is going to be our POV for that whole, like, the North rallying behind Rickon and bringing him out into the public to try to restore the North. And we'll see how all that goes. Oh, so on Darkstar, I don't know where that's going. I really don't. Like, where is he right now, and what in the world is he going to try to do? He's kind of like a complete wild card, Darkstar. And speaking of Darkstar, I want to talk about Dark Sister for a moment. The Valyrian sword that Bloodfinger, Bloodraven had, that he took with him when he was sent to the Night's Watch, when he was exiled to the Night's Watch. He was allowed to take Dark Sister with him, and he's taken Dark Sister north of the Wall when he left the Night's Watch and went to the tree and became Bloodraven. So somewhere in that cave, leaning up against a wall or something, is the Valyrian steel sword Dark Sister. So I fully expect that Mira will end up getting Dark Sister and wielding that to protect Bran once they have to leave. So, and that's one of the things that I'm waiting on. I mean, there's no way, like this Dawn, the sword Dawn, there's no way Martin is not going to bring Dawn back into play. I think Howland Reed has it personally, that he's holding on to it. So I don't know if he's going to bring it north with him, if it's going to end up. Jon has Longclaw, but will he end up keeping Longclaw, or will Dawn end up in Jon's hands? It's who knows. But we have these swords, and I can't imagine that they're not gonna play a role in at least that fight, like the second Long Night. But yeah, Darkstar, I really don't know where he's off to. Like, I could see him going after Dawn would be an interesting thing. It makes sense that he would want to claim it. Because, I mean, there is no Sword of the Morning right now. So I imagine someone's going to step up, and he's kind of makes sense that he feels like it should be him. So this is one of the things I love about this story. There's just so much to theorize about and wonder about. So Rhaegon to carry the Blackfire sword. Yeah, that's true too. And I do think, I mean, I have a 3 reasons why Young Griff really is Aegon video on my channel. Because Martin has put some, like, not red herrings, but foreshadowing and things that could support the theory. But I do think in the end, that Aegon is Fagon, that he is actually a Blackfire. Though it is a bit odd that Varys would throw everything he's got behind him. Now, it could just be that Varys thinks he's the best choice for the realm. It doesn't matter that he's not really a Targaryen. But one of the Targaryen bastards to the Blackfires. It could just be that's fine by him. That it doesn't have to be a Targaryen. That it's just if he's the right one for the realm, the best one for the realm, that's might be Varys' motivation. But I don't know. And that's one of those things we're waiting to see. There's so many moving parts that are going to open up the Winds of Winter. We have the battle outside for Meereen about to happen. Because we have the Yunkai and everyone getting ready to attack. And Victarion and his Iron Fleet are about to show up. So we have that fight. Stannis and Winterfell is going to happen. And we also have Euron Greyjoy is on his way to sack Old Town. So those are all happening at the whole opening of the next book, which were all supposed to be the final part of A Dance with Dragons. Those battles were all supposed to close out the last book, but there just wasn't enough room, so they got shifted to open up this next book. Yeah, it's like I hope we find out more about Varys. I want to know what did he hear in the flames? Like, what did the voice say? Because the show never told us, and the show even brought that back up and then never gave it to us. So I don't know. Maybe it's just something Martin said. Yeah, I'm not telling you. I'm saving it for the books. So we'll see. Now, I think we were talking about Jane. Oh, I think Rob's wife is, from what I heard, she's going to be the POV for the prologue of the Winds of Winter. I'm pretty sure that's been confirmed that she's the prologue POV, which does not bode well for her, because prologue and epilogue characters generally don't survive for the most part. So maybe she'll be an exception, but we'll see. I don't have high hopes. But I'm pretty sure she's supposed to be the prologue POV. Yeah, Sam, I'm curious as to what are the Faceless Men up to in Old Town? Like, why is there a Faceless Man there at the Citadel? And what's he after? Is he after a particular book? Is he after one of those, the Seeing Candles? Or is he there to kill somebody in particular? Because usually they're assassins, so the question is, who hired them and why? Or is this something the House of Black and White is proactively doing on their own? But yeah, Sam is about to be in a pretty precarious place, because if Euron is coming to sack Old Town and Sam is there, that's not really good. So I don't think Sam will be staying in Old Town too much longer. I think he's going to end up having to flee, because hopefully Sam won't end up in Euron's clutches, because that wouldn't go too well. Now, if there's a character that is going to survive this whole story, I expect it'll be Sam. That's his Samwise Gamgee, and I cannot see as cold-hearted as Martin can be when it comes to characters. I cannot, for the life of me, seeing him killing his Samwise Gamgee. So, we'll see. I'm really curious as to what's going to happen to Euron as well. I don't see him going out the way he did in the show. That was, but then again, show Euron was a pale imitation of the book Euron. Book Euron is like a lord of chaos. He's like a chaos god. I enjoyed the show Euron, but nothing at all like the character in the books. The Euron in the books is terrifying. Okay. Okay, maybe in the chapter but not the POV. If she's in the chapter but not POV, then all right, that's her fate is looking a little better. Then, because if she's the POV, then I probably won't expect her to survive it. Hey, B&B Books, how you doing? Yeah, Euron is kind of like the Joker in the books. I mean, I think that's a pretty good description. He's, again, another complete wild card. And just completely insane. But what I want to know is, how is his Valyrian steel armor going to end up in Jon's hands? Because if you look at one of Jon's dreams, where he's on top of the wall wearing a suit of black armor and fighting all the undead, including an undead Robb Stark, by the way, and casting them all back down off the wall, that sounds like that's Jon wearing that Valyrian steel armor that Euron has. So I'm really curious as to how that's gonna, if that does happen, how does Jon end up with Euron's Valyrian steel armor? Yeah, so are the towers submerged beneath a black and bloody tide? Is that Eastwatch, like she thinks? Or is that the Citadel? Is that Old Town? And personally, I think that, I know in the show, Cersei is basically crowns herself, but I honestly don't see how she, the moment her son dies, she has no power, and she's either becomes a political prisoner or ransom, or someone sticks a knife in her back. Unless her Lannister army is large enough, I don't see how she could actually take that throne, because it's wide open for anybody, unless they all just decide, okay, yes, Stannis is actually the heir now, because technically Stannis, as Robert's brother, the throne would default to him. But I don't know if Cersei can even take the throne, and if she does, she can't hold it very long. I think it's far more likely that Cersei will have to flee King's Landing, back to Casterly Rock, because Martin has said we're going to get Casterly Rock in the books. So it makes sense for her to flee to Casterly Rock, and then Euron will make his way there. Once Victarion shows up carrying Dany and her army, Euron will realize his shot at Daenerys is gone, and then make his way to Cersei over at Casterly Rock. But I don't know. I imagine, since the show put her on the throne, I imagine you would think that's going to happen in the books. But just from if you look at the practicality of it, she doesn't really have much in the way of power right now. She's been humiliated. Her son has basically cut her out of everything. And a lot of that was Kevin Lannister doing that to her as well. So maybe with Kevin being axed, Cersei will be able to wheedle her way back in to Tommen's world and his graces, and then regain power. So that's possible. But I don't see how she just says, yep, I'm queen now, and everyone just says, okay. I just don't see it. There's just way too many people eyeing that throne. And there's a lot of other Lannisters still alive in the books. So I could see one of the Lannister cousins saying, yeah, I'll take Casterly Rock. You can keep Cersei. Don't worry about it. So we'll see. I'm curious. I just don't really think it's realistic for her to just take the throne, unless she does it after Tommen dies by force, because she has enough Lannisters there. Yeah, and again, I mean, in the show, I think it's far more likely that Aegon would get to that throne first. Because if he does take Storm's End and then marches on the Red Keep, you know, it's going to be hard for King's Landing to stand against him. Especially for Cersei Lannister, of all people. She's probably one of the most reviled people there in King's Landing at this point. And I just don't see how she instantly recovers in the show, because she kills everybody. But we'll see. I mean, again, Martin is such a skilled writer; he can make it work. But I don't know. It's let's see. Yeah, I think someone will betray her, or she unless she yes, she has Sir Robert Strong, you know, this zombie mountain. But he in the end, he's still just one person. No matter how big he is and seemingly unkillable he is, he's still just one person. And yeah, the wildfire, that's a big one. Will it be set off on purpose, like in the show, which is always possible? I could see Cersei blowing up Baelor Sept. Or will it be set off by accident? You know, Dany might set it off by mistake when she comes to take the city. Or in one of my videos, someone was commenting that they think Jon Connington, they think Fagon will fail, and Connington will side with Daenerys and help take King's Landing with Daenerys, and then Connington will hear the bells and lose it, and then just start burning people, and then Daenerys will get blamed for it all, which is a pretty interesting theory as well, and something that could possibly happen. But that wildfire is blowing up somewhere in these next two books, because it's been set up more than enough for it's going to happen. And if you look through Cersei's chapters, there's a decent amount of imagery that connects her with fire and wildfire. And Martin has been kind of playing with how he kind of describes Cersei, and he connects her in some ways almost to the others, and in some ways he connects her to the wildfire. If you look at the descriptions he uses, he kind of layers in both of those things. And I'm just really curious also with when it comes to Cersei and her, you know, Sir Robert Strong. And will the others be able to control, you know, the zombie mountain? Because right now he seems to have his own agency. But will they be able to control him? Or because he was zombified in a way by the ex-maester, that he'll be his own kind of guy, like Jon, you expect Jon would be. Yeah, because going back to the bells, that scene with why the bells wouldn't set Daenerys into a killing rage like that. That would be, the bells would be victory for her. So the only one who would lose his stuff from the bells is Jon Connington, because he's got that traumatic memory. So I wonder, will Jon Connington be the one that messes the place up with fire or wildfire, because the bells make sense for him, but not for Daenerys. But yeah, there's again so much to speculate about. How long is Tommen gonna survive, and how is he gonna go? And Marcella's still alive in the book, so I think she's like lost an ear. So, and also one of the Sand Snakes is on her way to the Red Keep to take the Red Vipers, her father's seat on the small council. So, and we have Ariana Martell trying to find young Griff, Aegon, and we have the Sand Snake on her way to the capital to sit there on the small council and represent Dorne. So, with the epilogue ending the way it does, and in their hands the daggers, which is just a perfect ending to a book, as particularly a Song of Ice and Fire book. And so that there is no hand of the king anymore. And then we're going to have a Sand Snake show up. So yeah, Dorne has their hand. They've got little hands everywhere right now. So when Dorne makes their move, that's gonna also be something, because I don't see. There's no way if the Sand Snake, if she arrives and she sees Sir Robert Strong and she realizes that that's the mountain somehow, then that's going to be all the proof they need that head that they were sent was a lie. And I can't see her not just sticking a knife into Cersei's neck at that point. I mean, she might just say, screw it, go out by taking Cersei with her. Yeah, that's a possibility. I mean, the Sand Snakes are there, and Martin's going to use them a hell of a lot more than the show did. So, and there's a lot of them. So, he can use them in all sorts of different places. And yeah, so that grayscale, like in the show, it was Ser Jorah who got the grayscale, but obviously in the books it's Sir John Connington. And I'm wondering, is this idiot going to start an outbreak of grayscale in Westeros? And if he doesn't start an outbreak of it, is he gonna infect somebody important with it? Like, imagine if Aegon really is, young Griff really is Aegon Targaryen, and he is succeeding, and he's taking Storm's End, and he's ready to march on the city, and Connington accidentally gives him grayscale. So that would be pretty messed up. So yeah, and yeah, Aegon's storyline is so interesting to me, because we have no idea where he's going with it at all. Yeah, because if you look at that, like bringing the Grey Death to King's Landing makes sense, because you have that other sort of plague outside Meereen going on, and it would kind of balance and mirror things out if an outbreak of grayscale popped up in King's Landing. Like, imagine if grayscale started spreading in like Flea Bottom. There would be just, that whole city would just explode with riots and violence. So, and Martin does like to parallel things. Like if you look at a lot of the current characters and their storylines and things they've done or are doing, a lot of his characters in the past from his stories have done similar things. So there's patterns there, and he likes repeating patterns. So we'll see. We'll see. I mean, the grayscale has to serve more of a purpose than just an interesting character quirk for Connington. Yeah, so what would happen if someone cut off a grayscale arm and threw it into the stew? What would it do to it? Would that infect everyone who eats it, or would it kill it? But I'm just wondering, you know, again with Aegon and Jon, we have 3 dragons, and we possibly have 3 Targaryens. Pretty much definitely 2. So I wonder, will all 3 dragons get a rider? I mean, the show didn't, but that didn't happen. Or technically, you know, the Night King did ride one. But so far, there is no Night King in the books yet. We haven't seen one. That was kind of a creation for the show. So I don't know if there's an actual like person in charge of the others. We don't know that yet. And let's see. Just look at the chat again. Pink patterns. That's why I like Dark Star with Dawn. Yeah. Now, yeah, that would be really cool. Like Dark Star as a new Sword of the Morning, and on the Kingsguard for Aegon. That would be quite cool. That would mirror, you know, like Sir Arthur Dayne with Rhaegar. Yeah, there was the Night's King, but was that a former Night's Watch who left and became that? Who went off with that sort of Winter Queen or whatever that was? So I don't know if that person is still around or will become like the book's version of it. It's hard to say. I do want to really quickly though, like one of my absolute favorite theories about dealing with the others comes from Joe the Magician, his channel. And if you go back and you read the prologue, the very first scene in the whole story, when they finally stumble across the others, like you have Sir Waymar Royce, and if you notice, there's like 5 others, and the 4 of them stand back, and just the one approaches to basically offer battle, and that one other is kind of hesitant, almost timid, until Waymar is injured, and then the other sees the hot blood and realizes, okay, and then the other's entire demeanor changes, and he's just scornful. And then he basically kills him, and they all come in and stab him, and then turn him into a zombie. Joe the Magician's theory is that the others have a prophecy about Jon Snow, about particularly resurrected undead Jon Snow. Because if you look at Waymar Royce, the physical description of Waymar Royce in the book, in the prologue, and then you look at the physical description of Jon Snow at the beginning as well, they're very, very similar. Most of House Royce are big, like bulky, burly men, except Waymar. Waymar looks very much in line with the Starks, with his hair and his gray eyes and his slender build. So the theory is that the others have a prophecy of undead Jon being their doom, and so they're looking for him. And one of the things that has to do with Craster, one of the reasons they leave Craster untouched is not only does he supply them male babies, but they have Craster looking out for Jon, for someone matching Jon's description. Because in A Clash of Kings, when they finally, Mormont and Jon and them finally get to Craster's, Craster like immediately hones in on John, and he doesn't like him, and he pays attention to him, and then he's talking about how he had to keep his eye on Waymar Royce. But then when Mormont asked him where did Royce and the other two riders go, Craster was like, I didn't pay any attention to where they went, which is a red flag right away, because if Craster is watching these men to keep him away from his daughter wives, he's going to pay very close attention to where they go. So the theory is that the others just gave Craster a description. Waymar Royce fit that description, so Craster sent Waymar and the other two in the direction that would send them right into the other's hands. So I really like that theory, because it explains perfectly why there was 5 of them, and why they were so hesitant and timid and almost afraid until they realized, oh, this is just a regular guy. He's not undead. He's not the one we're looking for. And then they just treated him with disgust and killed him. So if that theory turns out to be true, then that's going to be really interesting to see. And will we learn more about that? Because Craster's dead, so we can't get that from him. But is there a way the others can communicate, or perhaps will Bran be able to tap into the Weirwood network and see it? But it really does make you look at the prologue in a whole new light, looking at it from that perspective. Because the way the others do react to Waymar at the beginning, at first, is very, very different. Because we don't see them again until Fist of the First Men. And they just slaughter the Night's Watch there. There's no hesitancy. There's no timidness. There's no nothing. It's just a massacre. And it's really different. And now it could just be that was like the first scene he wrote, so he didn't really have them like dialed in yet. But it really is like, no pun intended, starkly different behavior than what we've seen since. So, but it makes the prologue a little even more interesting than it is. Yeah, and like you mentioned, Tyler Cold Hands. I'm curious to see who Cold Hands is, and will we ever get that information? Because Martin has apparently said that he's not Benjen. So. So, yep. So, I think I don't know if I have anything else really to talk about tonight. That would be interesting if Cold Hands is whoever became that Night's King. That would make a lot of sense. You know, he could have been him. He could have been an earlier Mance, like another like sort of king in the north kind of thing. But hopefully we'll get an answer, and hopefully we will see Benjen again, or at least learn his fate. Because I can't imagine Bran wouldn't look for him himself even. And yeah, other than that, let's see. I'm still reading the first Mistborn book. I'm really enjoying it. I'm reading House of Chains, the Malazan book. I don't know if I mentioned it at the beginning of the live stream or not. And those are really cool. Malazan, if you have not read Malazan, I'm only on book 4 of the main series, but my 5th book in my combo reading. It's a massive, big story. It's like as big as the scope of the Wheel of Time is, Malazan's even bigger. Let's see. Showmakers of White. Yeah. And I don't think we've really seen anything like that in the book. Not really. So there's still so much we don't know about what's going on north of the Wall. And what I'm curious about is, obviously the others woke up a while ago because the free folk have been fighting them. I mean, Mance has taken years to pull as much as he could of the free folk together and get them to work together, resolve differences. So that's something that it's taken years to accomplish. So, which means this threat has been around north of the Wall for years now, slowly working its way down from wherever it is that they sleep, up way in the north. So was it Jon's birth that woke them up? Was it Daenerys's birth that woke them up? Was it something else? Was it someone's death that woke them up? So hopefully we'll get more of those answers too. And again, all that really is up to Bran, how Martin's going to use Bran. Because Bran is the perfect vehicle to show us all the things that Martin would need to show us about things that have happened in the past. And yeah, that pink letter, and I don't know, I really don't think I really don't think what's his face, the Bolton wrote it. Stannis definitely didn't write it because that's not Stannis' style. Stannis doesn't really do subterfuge like that. So, and Roose Bolton wouldn't write that. So, Ramsay is supposedly the one who wrote it, but I just think there are things in there that Ramsay, no matter how much he tortured anybody, wouldn't know. So I could see Mance writing that letter to try to lure Jon down to get them all out of there. I could also see maybe Theon. Theon might have written that letter for Stannis, though. I really don't see Stannis signing off on it, though. But perhaps it's Ramsay. Maybe it was, but I don't know. That's, again, and if you think of the pink letter and you look at what happened to Jon, I mean, Jon broke his oath. So pretty much any other Lord Commander who had said, yeah, I'm breaking every Night's Watch oath and I'm going to do what I want, they probably would have offed him too. So in the books, it's a bit more complicated than in the show. Because I think in the show, he doesn't get the letter until well after he's brought back, which is a pretty major change. Because, it's Jon deciding he's going to abandon the Night's Watch and march south down to Winterfell is when they basically say, okay, enough of this guy. He's violating the oath and everything, so he's got to go. Yeah, Lady Dustin could have as well. Yeah, I think it was something that had probably been coming. I mean, I think this plot to kill Jon definitely kicked in when Jon said he wanted the wild folk, the free folk, to come pass through the wall and be welcomed because they just needed everybody. I think that was a big one. And then him deciding that he's going to abandon them and ride off to war, which is completely violates his oath. And why they did it there, I don't know if it was just they took advantage of the moment to do it. They were able to get him vulnerable, away from Ghost. Though I can't even remember where Ghost is. I don't know if is Ghost roaming around north of the wall at this point, or is Ghost back? I think he must be back. Yeah, I've got to look that up and dig into that a bit more too, about John's death and how it ties into the Azor Ahai stuff. You know, I'm curious to see how that goes. Because I know, technically, you know, some people believe Daenerys is the princess that was promised, and others believe it's Jon, or will start believing it's Jon. I mean, Melisandre has basically been shown in her visions that it's Jon. And she just doesn't understand why she sees snow with a capital S, so that would imply that it's actually Jon she's seeing instead of just snow falling. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll have to go back and reread Jon's death chapter to go. I need to pay attention more to those little moments and how they tie into the Azor Ahai stuff. I think if you don't watch it, In Deep Geek, his channel, he's probably, he would be what I would say would be your go-to, like, a Song of Ice and Fire channel if you want like a deep dive into like really deep, intricate detail dive into like a lot of the Song of Ice and Fire lore. In Deep Geek, and then Joe the Magician, Gray Area. Just like Daniel Green, he would be my like your go-to for the Wheel of Time content. In Deep Geek would be my go-to for A Song of Ice and Fire, and Quinn's Ideas would be my go-to if you want to know about Dune. If you really want to get into like granular level stuff about any of those are like the people that they like. In Deep Geek, like he like studies this like it's like his lore and history, and he knows like all these details off the top of his head, where he can do a live stream for like 3 hours, and just any question you ask him, he knows like the whole in-depth history of it. Oh, cool. Yeah, so yeah, I imagine if you're watching me talk about A Song of Ice and Fire, you probably you probably definitely know In Deep Geek's channel. Yeah, his is pretty fantastic. I like watching his stuff a lot too. And I think he's one of the reasons that kind of got me inspired to like start doing some of these live streams, because they're fun. They're fun to listen to and talk about. Particularly, like I didn't plan for this to be a Song of Ice and Fire live stream, but that's, you know, it's, I could talk about this stuff like endlessly for hours and hours and hours, because there's so much in the books already, and then there's so much to speculate about. And it's going to be really, really interesting when the next book is finally out and we've all read it, and then there's only the final book to go. And I can only imagine just how enjoyable all those like theory videos are going to be. But I think I am probably going to start wrapping this live stream up. Oh, I see there's Illyrian in there. I missed your comments too. Let's see. So I just want to thank, again, Tyler. Thank you. I appreciate your patience in me getting to another live stream. And Zen Book Review and B&B Books. I really appreciate it. It's nice not sitting here talking to nobody. Thank you. I like these, so I definitely want to do more. I don't know if I'm going to do an every Saturday thing. I just don't know if I have enough to talk about. At a minimum, once a month, but I hope to like just every Saturday. And I'm just going to start scheduling them for 10 p.m. And I'm not even going to pretend that I can make it at 9:30. This is the second time I've tried, and I haven't gotten anywhere near to starting at 9:30. So I think I'm just going to stick with a 10 p.m. start going forward. But it is getting late. I'm on East Coast here, so it's about 1:45 to midnight. So I think I'm going to pretty much wrap it up. And again, thank you, Tyler, and everybody else. It has been a hell of a lot of fun. And I'm looking forward to the next one. And let's see if I can figure out how to actually end this stream. Because I've only done that once. All right, so let's see if this works. All right, so I'm just going to have an outro. Thanks for watching, card up there. And I'm Charles of SirBookSage. You can find my links to my channel down below, playlists, and a PayPal account for anyone who wants to donate anything to the channel. I did have my first ever PayPal donation recently, so thank you to the person that donated. That was a total shock, but very well appreciated. Anyway, I never bring it up, but it's in my description box every time. I just feel weird like pointing it out, but it's there. Anyway, I am Charles of SirBookSage. Happy reading.